All right. And we are on this book of Genesis, and I want to jump to chapter 37 to talk to you this morning. And when I come next time, there is a thought that I haven't fully developed in verse 1 of chapter 1 of Genesis. And when I develop that thought, I want to bring it to you because it really has to do with how we see our world. And right in that text, Genesis 1:1, in the beginning, God. And it could stop there. But it continues by saying, created. And it could stop there. But it didn't stop there. The heavens and the earth. And all of your questions in life, philosophical questions, is answered right in that verse. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And so that's another sermon when these young fellas give me a chance to preach again, I'll preach it. Now, how many of you are concerned about your future? Huh? How many of you are concerned about your future? It's a genuine concern, right? We all have a genuine concern about our future. And our future is, and I often tell God this, and when one of these days he would answer me. If I could only get a glimpse of what will take place in the next 10 years, oh gosh, I'll be a happy man. At least I think so. But then sometimes I think, if I get that, I may not be happy. Because I will see some of those apparently bad things that would happen, and I will try to use my own human endeavors to fix them. And I might mess it up. So, in a sense, as Christians, we have to trust in the sovereign ability of God to take care of us. Amen? All right, that's the sermon, so we could go home now. But if I ask the question, what do you see in the future for yourself? Some of you will see all sorts of things. You see a bigger house, you see a bigger car, you see plenty children, you see grandchildren, you see money, you see ministry, you see all sorts of things. In fact, I heard a joke, some of you may have heard this already. Certain religion baptizes people, and when they baptize you, they dip you 3 times, and after they dip you, the first time they ask you, what do I see? And the guy got up and said, I didn't see anything. Second time, what do you see? Nothing. Third time, what do you see? I see you're trying to kill me. All right. Now, nobody is trying to kill you here now. But sometimes in life, as we look to the future, there is what I call vision blockers. As we look to where God wants us to go and what we need to accomplish in our lives, there's what I call vision blockers. And quickly, the first one, my present status could block where I want to go. Because I could get so caught up with where I am, I feel I am not able to go beyond that. When I examine where I am, I tend to feel sometimes, well, if it is so bad now, could I go anywhere? And that blocks our vision. Sometimes our present resources. I don't have any money. How am I going to build this house? How am I going to get this car? You know, I often tell people, if you're going to build a house, start. I built a house already, and I never had all the money to build any house. And what I did? Start. And you'll be surprised, when you start, you go finish. But if you look at your present resources, you really wouldn't go anywhere. You wouldn't do anything. If you look at what you work for and how much you get at the end of the day and what your pay packet looks like, you will just give up. And sometimes, not only your resources, but my view of what people think of me. Not what I think of me, of what people think of me. And in the back of our minds, a lot of us are concerned about what people are thinking about us. And what people think about us, for us, is more important than what we think about ourselves and sometimes what God thinks about us. And we allow what people to think about us to cripple us and to paralyze us because we are constantly looking at what people think about us. Then, wrong company. Hello? Wrong company blocks your vision. Everybody could be Christians. I often tell people that. Christians are wonderful people. But not all Christians, I need to spend all my time in their company. It's hard to say on Sunday morning, but it is the truth. Because some Christians are not, they are like Job's friends, who apparently were Christians too. They will come and you're lying down sick there and they would ask you, oh my goodness, you must have done something wrong to be so sick. They would see your car shutting down and the first thing they will ask you, did you pray when you got up this morning? All these very negative things, and they will literally paralyze you. So I tell people, there are people, I manage my friends quite well. Because if I allow everybody to come into my space and to pour into me all of what they want to pour into me, I may get polluted and paralyzed. And you have to be careful about wrong company. And then of course, wrong motives. Why do I want to do what I want to do? And you could talk a whole lot about that. And then of course, my attitude in life. Somebody said that my attitude determines my altitude. The frame I give, the attitudinal order that I give out, that determines whether I am going to succeed or not. Some people do not succeed not because they are not talented, you know. Some people do not succeed simply because they just have bad attitude. Some people don't succeed not because they're not gifted and talented and have opportunities in life. I know of people who are talented people, but they change jobs like they change clothes. And the problem is not their resume. In fact, when you look at the resume, you see wonderful abilities. The problem is your attitude to people and to life and to work that literally destroys you. So life really is filled with opportunities. It is filled with success. It has excitement in it. It has joy. But at the same time, life has uncertainties. You do not know what will take place. You do not know what will happen tomorrow. You do not know what will happen next week. Because you do not have a glimpse of the future. All we know is what is now. Not even 2 seconds from now. You understand that? You know that. So life is filled with uncertainties. One person said, don't worry about the people in your past. There is a reason they didn't make it to your future. Leave them right there. Another person made a statement, life's unpredictable. So don't stand around trying to read the future. You can't read the future. I always listen to these people who, before the hurricane season starts, these gurus of hurricanes. And they will come out and they'll say, oh, this year we're going to have almost 200 hurricanes. How many people could really predict that? And I'm not disputing scientific abilities, but the best of scientific abilities doesn't have a good grip of future. Because life and the world is really in God's hands. He controls, He directs, He ordains. And we have got to be comfortable with a God who is in control of life. Anyway, so how do I realistically and successfully envision my future? I want to consider very quickly Joseph. You must have read that story of Joseph. How many of you read that story of Joseph? Good. You must read it. It's real life. And I I want to suggest to you that Joseph's problems really started in Genesis chapter, what did I say, 35? 37. Joseph's problem really started when Joseph started to dream. That's when his problem started. Now you know, according to the sociologists and the psychologists, Joseph would have come out of a dysfunctional family. His father had how many sons? Anybody who know the Bible? How many sons Joseph had? How much? How many? 12 sons. And they made up the? Huh? All right. This is why we need Sunday school, you know. If you all weren't to Sunday school, they all would not be mumbling this to me here this morning. We must turn Sunday morning service into Sunday school. Right, so anyway, Joseph grew up in his father. He was the second to last son of who? What is this? You all are in the General Bishop's Church. Answer, what is it? What is this morning? He was the second to last son of? And who was the last son, by the way? Oh, finally, they got up. They woke up. So he is the second to last son of Jacob. For whatever reason, I don't understand, and I probably need to interview Joseph and his wife to find out what about Joseph that made Jacob love him so much? Or Rachel. He loved Rachel. But what about Rachel? Anyway, not going there. That he loved Joseph so much to the extent that the Bible tells us he made him a coat of many colors. And you could see this little boy posing with his coat, and you could hear him, my daddy loves me. My daddy made a coat for me. You know. And if he was in dub, if dub was around, he would have dubbed a song to provoke his brothers. And you could understand how that is. And some of us may have come out of home or backgrounds where the truth is there was a gut feeling that your parents didn't like you as much as they love others. Some of you, not all of you. Some parents have the rich ability or the powerful ability to love their children all the same way. But anyway, to add insult to injury, Joseph started to dream. So he's walking around the place with his coat of many colors, singing this song, possibly, my daddy loves me and he made a coat for me. And then one morning he gets up and he says, you know, I had a dream, fellas. And the gist of the dream is, one of these days, you guys are going to bow down to me. Oh gosh. Trouble starts. His brothers started to get angry, and the Bible tells us Joseph was what? Sold by his brothers. So, if you look at the life of Joseph, you see, he was loved by his father, hated by his brothers, then sold as a slave. And so he's in Potiphar's home now, and then the Bible tells us he's prospering, eh? And in the midst of, while he's in Potiphar's home, he's accused of what? Sexual harassment. And then he is now thrown into prison by Potiphar, and he's in prison now. And while in prison, he gets a job. How many people get a job when they're in prison? Brother Carlson, you know if anybody get a job when they're in prison? I mean a legal job, eh? Not. I know those kinds that happen there. And Brother Guy has to control that, you know. But you have a legal job in prison where he is in charge of some of the prisoners. Correct? And then the Bible tells us he becomes a dream interpreter. Two prisoners had a dream, and he interprets the dream, and he says to one of them, when you get into the king's court, please tell somebody about my abilities. The person doesn't remember him for 2 years. So more pressure there. And then the scripture tells us the king, Pharaoh, he gets this terrible dream, and he brings all his philosophers and musicians and all the different people to try to interpret the dream. Nobody could interpret the dream. Then the guy who Joseph interprets this dream for said, I know of a guy. He is in prison, and he is able to interpret the dream. King sends for him. You know the end of the story. Joseph is made prime minister of Egypt. And as prime minister of Egypt, he has to manage the resources of all this wheat and corn and what have you, so to ensure that in the famine that there will be sufficient food. And I put as the eighth one, he's a minister of mercy. Because down the road his brothers come and they want to show, he has to show mercy to them. Now, what in this story will help us as we embrace our future or envision our future? Let me suggest 4 things very quickly. As we embrace or envision the future, we must embrace the providential care of God. Hello? As we embrace the future, as we envision the future, as you look towards the future, know that there is a God who is a providential God, a God who is going to care for you. Now look at Joseph. In every state of Joseph's existence, while he was going through all of that, there are a couple times in the narrative you read this phrase, and the Lord was with Joseph. And the Lord prospered Joseph. Could I suggest to us this morning, that as you embrace or envision the future, you have to embrace the fact that God cares for us. And God has a way of working everything out in our best interests. You know what the Lord said? He says, watch the sparrows in the field. Watch the birds of the air. Watch them. You never see any bird propping its jaw, looking sorrowful, wondering what I'm going to eat tomorrow. I mean, I have 2, I want to cook them right now. They're eating too much of food, and they have some nasty birds who just eat the thing and then spit it outside, and that's messed up the whole place, you know. So I want to get rid of them just now. I'll put them on a cookie stick and roast them in the fire or something like that, when my wife is not around. But you have to embrace the providential care of God, that God is going to care for us. We can't tell what is going to happen tomorrow. You don't know. And the best tool to enter into the future with is not a bank book, by the way. The best tool to enter the future is not hoping that your parents will leave something on their will for you, because they very well might leave nothing for you. The best tool to enter the future is not some man who go to some psychic and they can give you advice. They don't know for their own self. Some of them knew they wouldn't be in prison anyway. The best tool to walk into the future is to walk with the facts. They accept the reality that God will take care of me. God will take care of me. Hear what Psalm 33 and verse 18 says. Behold, the eyes of the Lord is upon them that fear him, upon them that hope in his mercy. His eyes are constantly watching out for us. So, hope or embrace the providential care of God. Then embrace the promises of God. And it's noteworthy that God never made any promises to Joseph, you know. Read the Bible properly. Promised Joseph nothing. The promise was really made to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. So there are certain promises that God has made to us. One of the promises that for me that is very powerful, I will never leave you nor forsake you. And sometimes in the worst of moments, when things don't seem to be working the way that it has to go or it need to go, you have to hold on to that promise. God, you said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. And you know, the truth about Christianity is this, that you have to accept or believe in a God who has your back, who watches for you. And so when you go through those difficult moments, as you look towards the future, God will keep his promises. For when God made promises to Abraham, Hebrews 6 says, behold, he could not swear by no greater. He swore by himself, saying, surely blessings I will bless thee, and multiply and I will multiply thee. And if we were to look at Abraham's life, you would almost kind of believe at some point, God, you forget me. In fact, last week I was very interested, last week Friday, just before the service started. You know the devil has come and taunt your brains before service starts, So I'm there and I'm saying, God, you know, I have some things that I've been asking you for years now. I want you to do it, God. I want you to do it, God. But it seems, God, you know, and you could talk to God in real, You don't have to say ha 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 to talk to God at all. You don't have to do that. You could talk to God in real. Let's stop all this nonsense where you have to change your accent to talk to God. Now, God understands Trinidad language anyway. And I said, God, you know, I really, you know, I think I give up asking you about this, you know. I think I give up. I ain't asking you nothing about this again. Because it looks like you have decided not to answer my prayer. Almost 6 years I'm waiting on you to answer this, Lord. I know some of you wondering, what is that, boy? That is between God and I. So I'm there and I'm resolved in my mind, I ain't asking you anything about this, God. And then the preacher, Reverend Sinclair Mitchell, starts to preach. And guess what text he goes to? He goes to this text in Genesis, in Exodus, where God says to Moses, is there anything too hard for me to do? Is there anything too hard for me to do? And I'm saying, so what is this now, God? It's only me you can talk to? God keeps his promises. So I said, God, you know, hear what? I'm going to, after I heard the sermon, I said, okay, I'll begin to believe you again. He keeps his promises. He's not slack concerning his promises, as some men count slackness. And then thirdly, we have got to embrace the protection of God. God will protect us. He will protect us. And particularly today, you know, some of us, the culture today is, if you really take it on, you lock up yourself in your house and don't come outside. Because it's vicious. People don't seem to care these days about human life and human existence. But God will protect you. And the protection of God is needed as we envision the future and capture what we believe God wants us to do, to have and to do. But let me echo this warning to you, to us this morning, that the guarantee of protection, hear me well, the guarantee of protection is not an immunization card from obstacles to purpose. Could I say it again? The guarantee of protection, God will protect. But that is not an immunization card from the obstacles that will come your way as you seek to fulfill the purpose of God in your life. So, Joseph had obstacles. You know how many? Plenty. Some brothers, 10 of them giving him a hard time. Potiphar, well, Potiphar's wife first, that woman. Then Potiphar, who could have possibly said, you know, Joseph, you have been a trusted servant, so hear what? I believe you. Of course, he could not have gone back home if he did that. And then prison, and then. That's life. But as you go through all these difficult moments, No money in your pocket sometimes. You want to accomplish this. You fail the exam. The children give in trouble. And all that you projected to happen has not happened as yet. In fact, you see more obstacles than successes on your way. Note, God is going to protect you in the midst of all of that. And he will keep you in the midst of that. Psalm 91 says, he who dwells in the shelter of the Most High, what will happen? Will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. And here the boast of David, I will say of the Lord, what is he? He is my refuge and my fortress. Anyway, my 15 minutes is up now. Last one. Embrace the purposes of God. You know, one of the things I'm coming to grips with in life, that all that I do and all that comes my way is not so much about me. It's about God. It's not about me, you know. It's about God. God has purpose attached to it. God has purpose. So God takes Joseph, and sometimes I think, you know, God, maybe he's unfair, but he knows what he's doing. He takes Joseph, let him grow up in a dysfunctional home, take him through all the hassle with his brothers, cause him to be sold. And you know, in slavery in those days was a terrible thing. It's worse. It was terrible in those days. He's sold, he's thrown into prison. All these terrible things happen. And hear what God wanted to work out. In simple, God was preparing a man to be in a certain place at a certain time to do a certain thing. That's all. That's all. That's all. But that certain thing he wanted them to do really is about the whole of humanity. Because he placed Joseph in the household of Pharaoh to be the prime minister of Egypt, managing the resources of Egypt, all the wheat and the corn and all of that, so to ensure that Joseph, when his brothers come up to him because of the starvation and the famine that existed, that Joseph will be there at the gate to say, come in, fellas, there is food here for you. Because if he wasn't there, the Pharaohs will not have allowed all of this Israelite band to come in and be saved. And what would have happened? The lineage of Jesus Christ would have been destroyed. And history has shown where whole nations, whole tribes literally wiped out by disasters. Totally extinct. In fact, I was reading a book many years ago, and the book was, the author was saying, if you really want us to believe in a God, watch Israel. And the author makes the point, there were so many nations that existed in Israel's time, and most of them are extinct. You have to go and dig up bones to see where they existed. But Israel went through all the rigors, all the pressures of Pharaoh, all the pressures in Egypt, all the problems there, and God still preserved them. Because God made a promise to one man, in thee shall all the nations of the earth be blessed. And out of you will come the Messiah. Later on, the text in the Old Testament, it makes the point. The Messiah will come out of this tribe, out of Abraham. So that the whole world can know about Jesus Christ and be saved. Could I suggest to you that where you are now, what you do what job you hold, what family you were born into, whatever, it's not about you so much. It's about God has some divine purpose to work out. Some divine purpose. I was sharing in my father's funeral service, I was sharing with them. I say, people will look at this 84-year-old man and say, nobody knows him. His name was never on the papers yet. Who knows this man? What was his purpose in life? And I was saying to them, my mother had me out of wedlock. And found this man. She grew up in St. Joseph, and in those days when you have a child out of wedlock, you have to go to the next town or far town away to have that child, because they will not tolerate it, and they would encourage you to commit abortion, and just to maintain this status, because St. Joseph was that status place long time. And so my mother ended up in Pepper Village, Faizabad. A man comes from St. Vincent. Young man comes from St. Vincent. Pastor Kirby's country. And bunks up this young woman. She's around 21 years of age. And by then she had 2 children. Falls in love with her and decides to marry her. And that seems normal. Seems normal. Seems normal. He marries her and gives her 8 or 9 others, I think. But what, as I said in the funeral service, what to me was purpose was that God knew long before that this boy named Pat had to grow up in an environment that will cradle him in such a way to fulfill purpose. To fulfill purpose. And so I grew up in this place in South Trinidad, Faizabad, and life wasn't rich, it was poor. I learned management skills by taking care of my brothers and sisters. When you're the first, you had to do a number of things, I learned how to share food. Used to put out 10 plates. And my plate was the end. And that end plate always had more than all the others. Learned management skills. I learned division of labor. When my mother is not around and my father is not around, I had to go and delegate responsibilities. You clean that, you wash the wares, you do that. And in those days, big brothers had plenty power. I learned that there. And so today now, I am General Bishop of Pawi. And then I compared, had I grown up in the sperm donor's home, that's my blood father. He donated a sperm. Oh, he's a lawyer, was a lawyer. I possibly would have had a good life in terms of material things. But then he's a Rosicrucianist. And my religious upbringing would have been totally different. And I conclude that God knows exactly what he's doing. And sometimes, you see, we human beings down here, we have a way of judging situations based on our own puny one-eye view of it. We see a woman who comes through, who has a child before she's married, and certainly that is not the right thing, but we almost sentence that to be the end of your life. Hello, stop that nonsense. In our last district conference, the pastor, what's his name? Steer, asks the question, how many of you ministers were born out of wedlock? You all remember that? Plenty. Almost all the ministers in Northeast District born out of wedlock. But we human beings, we judge. We human beings, we put signature, and certainly I'm not giving anybody any license to go and do that. Because that has its pains. But I'm making the point that we human beings only see a small picture. But God sees the whole picture, and he has a way of working all things together for good. in spite of the difficulties and the struggles and the obstacles and all the pressures we go through, all things work together for good to them that love God, Lord, to them who are called according to his purposes. All things work together. And so it's not about you. That little child, that son you have given you all that trouble. Purpose is attached to that child's life. That job that you're on and the people giving you a hassle there, and Christians like to jump over, oh, in the name of Jesus, the devil. Hello. God probably put you there to impact somebody's life. That situation that seems insurmountable, hello, instead of getting angry and giving up, ask yourself the question, God, what purpose is in this? Because God, as he guides your future, is about purpose. Purpose. Look to your future. Know that God will care for you. Know that God will protect you. Know that God will keep his promises. And at the end of the day, know that God is a God of purpose. And what did you know what Joseph said to his brother? His brother came to him and, oh, Joseph, you know, we're sorry, blah, 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 blah. Oh, we're sorry, Joseph. Joseph said, hey, guys, relax yourself now, man. You meant it for evil. God meant it for good. Because if you didn't go through where you went through, if I didn't go through where I went through, what I went through, I would not be here today in Egypt, sitting down in this throne and telling who where to come. And he says, go bring my father and my brother and my sister and my uncle and my aunt. Bring them, let's save all of them from famine. Because God is a God of purpose. So don't get yourself all